Behind the Built Environment, the podcast from BESA, the UK's leading trade body for the building engineering services sector.
Hello, my name is David Freeze, Chief Executive of BESA. Welcome to Behind the Built Environment, the podcast where I delve into the major issues facing our industry through in-depth conversations with key industry leaders. Join us as we explore the trends, challenges, and innovations shaping the future of the built environment. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Nick Mead. Welcome, Nick.
Hello, David.
Nick is the Technical Director for MICA Systems at Laing O'Rourke and also Chair of the BESA Building Safety Act Advisory Group. Nick joined Laing O'Rourke back in May 2017 as a chief engineer. He is an experienced chartered engineer with over 45 years in contracting and consulting. Nick has a wealth of experience in a wide range of sectors and has worked within many industry bodies covering fire and technical issues. Most recently, his role has been to support the business through the Building Safety Act and changes in CE marking. Between 2015 and 16, Nick held the position of CIBSE President. He has a bachelor's degree in environmental engineering and is a fellow of CIBSE and the IMEC-E. So, again, welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. A long career.
Very long, yes. Very enjoyable, though.
Well, that's good. If you get to the end of your career and you think it's been enjoyable, that's something. But you're not quite at the end yet.
Not yet.
No. So we kick this off with some quick fire yes-no answers.
Okay.
So yes or no, please. Not as easy as it sounds. And interestingly, we had Lorna Stimpson on from Building Control as our first one, and we asked her 5 questions on the Building Safety Act. So I'm going to ask you the same 5 questions, and hopefully you give the same answers. So question 1. Is the Building Safety Act the most important change in construction in your career?
Yes.
Does it cover all buildings?
Yes.
Yes. We'll come back to that, obviously. Is everyone in construction impacted?
Yes.
Will the Building Safety Act result in behavioural change in the industry?
Yes.
Will the industry be better because of it in 5 years?
Yes.
Do good companies who are competent and compliant have anything to fear from the Building Safety Act?
No.
So we're on to the main body of the questions. So you can do more than yes and no from here on, Nick. First off, so as a tier 1 contractor, one of the largest contractors in the UK, you're at the front line of the Building Safety Act. How are you adapting to what was described as the biggest change? You've agreed the biggest change in your career. How are you adapting to that at Laing O'Rourke?
It feels like I've got a small army on it, to tell you the truth. We've really put a lot of effort into this. We've been really fortunate that the company have recognised the significance of the change, and we've adopted a small team to sort of pull this together and work across it, not only internally with our own procedures, but to support industry and work with others to see how we can manage the change, but also look at how we work up and down. So up in our consultants, our design partners, our clients, and then down through the sort of the supply chain, manufacturing, and everything. A lot of work. I think we're in a good place, but we're at the beginning of a long journey.
It must be considerable investment on the part of Laing O'Rourke to do this.
Yeah, considerable investment. And I'm really grateful to be part of it, and the support that the company has given us all internally, but allowed us to also to work with industry and share and help develop industry. So it's been really, really good journey. We
were discussing off air before we started about the highly fragmented industry that construction is and engineering services in. How is that being disseminated down through the supply chain? And do you believe that they're listening and adapting?
It varies in a lot of the sectors and the areas you work in. I think those who are most impacted, particularly those who have design responsibilities, the sprinklers and the fire alarm, they're recognising what they've got to do and the impact of it. I think some companies are working with it. I think the problem the supply chain has is typical government information is quite open to interpretation, and it's How do they get their understanding of it, particularly smaller ones who don't have large budgets? So we're trying to work with them to support them and bring them on the journey. But it's so variable across the board, depending on who you're working with.
And is that a danger for the industry, do you think?
Yeah. I think in the tier one sector where we're working with it, I think as the industry goes down and you start looking at tier twos and tier threes and people affected with it, I think it'll be a lot of hard work for some people. And I hope that the regulatory sort of doesn't come down too hard on people who just don't have that capacity or capability to develop it.
And how about up the supply chain, shall we say, amongst clients and the professional teams that you take designs of?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. A lot of clients are, they are more intelligent now, not being rude to clients, but they understanding more their impact on it. I think where we have to get through it and where this is all stemmed from is we can't keep going bottom line fastest program. All this now has an impact on what we price and what we program to do, and make that clear to the client and to the professional team for the client. I think the consultants and the architects have got a big learning curve. We thankfully should go back to design and build with this, and not this, well, it's good enough to start on site and we'll tweak it as we go along and we change things and then we argue about the costs, and get it designed, get it sorted and build it. The IKEA pack type approach, there's the pack, just go and build it. And I think that will be great for the industry. The client might struggle because that ability to change his mind as he goes along will be much harder for them. But it's got to be a better way to build a building.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Is it a recipe at the moment, though, for indecision? I can't make a decision because I don't really know what my liabilities are going to be.
Everything's slowed down. The industry has slowed down. The two-staircase rule brought chaos into the industry. We see a lot of government projects in that sort of process because they recognise that they've got to be more sure in their design and output before we can start on site. I think it's going to help a lot of the contracting industry because they have that skill set to be involved earlier to support the consultancies. So that will be a better approach to how we go. But we're in that journey now. And we talk about HRBs and non-HRBs. The Building Safety Act is quite specific in what it's defining. But the industry has got to recognise the massive amount of regulatory change that's gone on that affects everything we do in the construction industry. And that will be the hard part.
I'd like to come on to that bit of it. It's not just the Building Safety Act, isn't it? But before I get to that, how long do you think, what's your view on how long it'll take to settle down so that you have a period where we're no longer saying, well, I don't know what the law's going to really be interpreted in that way? How are we talking 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
It's a very difficult call. I would hope we won't be talking Building Safety Act in 5 years. I think that's when we get that business as usual. Some sectors will move quicker because they're forced to. Some will sort of try and understand where regulations are affecting them and responsibilities affecting them. And I think that's sort of the day job will take time to get there. Some sectors will probably 2.5 years. The industry as a whole will probably be about 5 years, just a view.
So going back to that question around what else other than the Building Safety Act, I noted in the Building Safety Act group, you make the point of saying it's not just the Building Safety Act. There are other changes coming down the line that you need to be aware of.
The Building Safety Act is all about what they call the high-risk buildings. It is predominantly residential. It talks about care homes and hospitals are a bit of a hybrid in the gateway process. But the Building Safety Act on its own is only an ability to create change. It's a tool for government to bring other regulatory change, and there are masses of them. They've changed a number of the building regulations and they are changing more, but building regulations affect every building. There's the Fire Reform Act, there's the Architects Bill, there's the procurement bills. All these things are coming on through it on the back of the Building Safety Act, but it's every building that we build, every structure that we build has an influence of those rules and regulations. And I think that's where some people might struggle in thinking, well, it doesn't apply to me. And if they're not up to date with all the regulatory changes in standards and things like that, that's going to keep going. That's probably going back to the last question, why I think it's 5 years, is we will still see changes in those regulations and standards that will adapt as we learn more.
In that vein, do you see a danger that the industry will be highly focused on making buildings safe for fire? And in doing so, they'll make them airtight, sealed, but actually won't ventilate them properly, for example, and we end up causing another problem as a result of too high a focus on one thing.
This is the problem we have with all rules and regulations and things. You've got the fire safety and types of insulation and things like that, but Part L energy is out there. We've still got Part M. There's lots of things going on, and I think that's where you've got to try and look at where they all work for your project, and then how do you agree where there's a conflict, because they will have a conflict. Insulation and fire rating of insulation and types of insulation. So you've got to sort of look at what's thing, and then you've got to agree that process with the building control officer to sort of say, well, these are my conflicts. We think that's more important, so we're going to drive that. And that's where the industry will have to get that skill set and knowledge developed in the whole industry.
We've just had a change of government. The sun has come out. Previous government were pretty sort of sanguine in the fact they said, well, we've brought the Building Safety Act, we've done our bit, over to you as an industry to develop that. Do you see the new government having the same attitude, or do you think they will be more hands-on at this point?
I don't think so. I think they were still, the Hackett Review always said, it's industry had to change it. It was industry who would have to drive change, and they've got to. They're the people with the skill set, the civil servants and the government. They're not contractors and builders and building services engineers. They write a standard. Typical with all regulations and guidance it is guidance, and it points you in a direction. Providing we can, as an industry, work together and with the likes of BESA and things like that, give the industry a route to travel, then we should be able to do it. We don't need anything too rigid, because it stifles us, and also then if it goes wrong, that's why it's quite vague. But yeah, I think it is up to industry. I don't see the government bringing in specialists and saying, well, this is what you're going to do, this is how you're going to build it. It'll be up to us who have the skill set to go and make it work. That's a great segue into the next question, which is really about skills, or SCEB, skills, knowledge, experience and behaviours. An unfortunate acronym, that really. But in the quickfire questions, will it change behaviours? You said yes. Can you expand a bit upon that? How do you think that's going to change behaviours? That will be the hardest thing for our industry, the culture of our industry. I think for too long now we've been forced into a position where we are building it quickly. We have the lovely term value engineering. We're all about getting it quicker and faster. Change control will be very important now, and how we manage change. I think it's the sort of, I've been doing it for 40 years, culture has got to go. I think there's going to be far more need for having systems and procedures in place and processes, understanding who is responsible for those decisions and processes, and people recognizing if they do something, what is the consequence of them doing it. Quite often in the contracting world, we'll change a wall type without realizing that the fire stopping, the fire damper now doesn't become compliant. So there's got to be far more integration. In the building services world, we build systems. A pipe doesn't work on its own without going into a heating system. We have to think of buildings as systems now. And system engineering is the way our industry has got to survive and develop and strive to get through that. Knowledge is good. We have good knowledge in our industry. We can prove paper qualifications. It's the culture, skill set and proving competency, and what is competent, and who is competent to assess someone is competent. And that's the steep climb I think we've got. Does it require everybody within the supply chain to be responsible for their own element of work? I'm trying to get to the point of
There's often a cry for we need more clerk of works, we need them to come back in. But didn't that engender a feeling that if the clerk of works hadn't spotted it, we've got away with it? Isn't it now the responsibility of every contractor to evidence how they've been compliant?
Yeah, I think everybody's responsible for their own actions. They need to be aware of the consequence of their action on others. You can't just change something because it suits you or put something in a different place because it's easy. We've got to be better at how we go to work and own what we take on site. You
mentioned earlier about value engineering. That's something that delivers no value and little engineering by and large. Do you see that the gateways in particular will see the end of value engineering as it's currently employed?
It will help it a lot because if you are changing something between the gateway, you've got to prove that it's still compliant and meets the regulations and standards and isn't just done for cheapness and cost. So that will help. And I think by having far more detail at Gateway 2 before you start on site will give greater opportunity to get it right. Value engineering is a fantastic term we just use for getting it done cheaper. But what we've got to make sure is that if that is done between Gateway 1 and 2, it's managed properly and is defined properly, and we still end up with something that is compliant and safe and to a quality we expect it to.
So if you were, let's say, building safety regulator for a day, is there one thing you would do that would make everything happen quicker, shall we say, or more effectively or efficiently?
Make sure people have read the rules and know who they sit in a team.
And how would you do that?
I think it's meeting with the right people. It's making sure that you can sit down at the beginning of a project, make sure everybody understands their role and responsibility and how they're going to develop through the life of the project.
You hear an awful lot about we're just waiting for the building safety regulator to prosecute someone properly, and then everything will fall into place because people say, "Oh, you're taking it seriously." Do you go with that view?
I think there's a little bit of that out there. I think people are nervous as what level they will come down. I think I think the building safety regulators will have to do something with impact to make people aware. Hopefully it won't be too severe and it won't be on the wrong people. It's a difficult call at the moment because I don't think we'll see things for a while. Where the building safety regulator will flex their muscles is in a change control, and they will impose an 8 or 12 week hold to make sure something is picked up and changed. I think that's where they'll work first before we go into the standing somebody in court. And nothing serious.
Fundamentally, this is about doing the right thing, isn't it, in the industry, and making sure everyone is both safe and their buildings. The building is there for the long term, not short term gain, which is the big culture change, I guess. Are you an optimist or a pessimist about this in the future?
No, I think I'm an optimist. I think this is great for our industry. It's how it used to be. We get back into the pride, deliver a really something you could walk by and go, I worked on that project. I'm proud of it.
I think that's a big thing. I think people come into work to do a great job, and we kind of get in the way, stop them doing it.
Yeah.
So finally, Nick, you're chair of the BESA Building Safety Act group. What does that involve, and what does the group do?
It brings the M&E contractors together who are working in this area. It opens a good discussion for people to not raise their concerns, but openly talk without fear of thinking, am I going to be branded? I don't know what's going on. So it's a great forum for people just to talk and discuss on how we as a group through BESA can support not only to the tier 1 M&E contractors, but right through down to the smaller groups and bring everybody on board to bring the building services along in line with compliance and regulatory standard.
And you've recently launched a campaign in the group.
Yes, the playbook. I think it's really good. The trouble with the regulations is you could give it to 5 people to read and you'll get 7 interpretations of that regulation. I think the playbook is really good because it enables people to understand how the construction industry works from right through to the client down to the end of maintenance and handover, but puts it into the relationship of the football world, from the owner of the club down to the linesmen and things like that, and how people will relate to it. And it puts it in a very simple language that just gives some clarity and where people fit. If you imagine how clockwork a football team runs, how important everybody is in that team, it recognises it in the construction side. Everybody's as important, and it's a really useful tool for people to understand.
So back to that, everybody needs to evidence their compliance.
Yes.
Okay. Now I know I said finally, but finally, I like to do a little roundup to make sure that I've understood and hopefully our audience have understood and interpreted what you've said today makes sense. So the Building Safety Act is the biggest change in construction in a generation, probably several generations.
Yes, definitely.
And it has an impact upon all buildings.
Yes.
Some more than others, but it certainly will bleed into others over a period of time.
Definitely, yes.
Everybody in construction needs to sit up and pay attention to this, because it's going to impact you no matter what you do on site.
Definitely, yes. Yeah.
I'd add to that I think many people don't recognise change that's come as the Building Safety Act, but it's the Building Safety Act that's driven it. It may come from Laing O'Rourke, for example, are now asking me to do this.
Yeah.
It's the Building Safety Act that's driven it. The building safety, you're going to have to change your behaviours.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And that's everybody.
Yes.
If we're going to deliver a built environment that works and is safe. But the good news is the industry is going to be better because of it in 5 years. It has to be better where good companies can thrive, because the playing field is effectively level. And there is nothing to fear for good companies. And they can find out everything they need to know through your group on the BESA website.
That's right.
Great. Nick Mead of Laing O'Rourke, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
And now the podcast news. As discussed earlier with Nick, we're thrilled to finally launch the BESA Play It Safe Guide. The football-themed interactive resource explains what your roles and responsibilities are in relation to your position on the pitch. We've taken all the massive information which is out there, simplified it and made it relatable to you as a contractor and your supply chain within the building engineering services sector. Visit thebesa.com/play it safe to download your free copy now, if you're a member. So what should BESA do next when it comes to the Building Safety Act? What further support and guidance do our members need, and to ensure they are competent and compliant with the Act? Our Building Safety Act, the Industry Awareness and Readiness Survey, has been launched to help answer these questions and will allow us to accurately gauge levels of awareness and understanding whilst identifying areas needing attention to drive cultural change. Please complete the survey. It will take no longer than 10 minutes and you will be entered into a prize draw to win a signed and framed Euro 2022 winner Rachel Daly football shirt. Visit thebesa.com/play it safe to complete, and the deadline is Friday the 30th of August at midnight. So unfortunately, there's been more news hitting the headlines regarding companies filing for administration and job cuts. The BESA legal and commercial team has been busy dealing with member inquiries who may be affected in their supply chain by retentions or unfair contract conditions. BESA membership includes free expert legal advice with no hidden fees, which when utilised can exceed the value of your annual membership fee. There are a number of fact sheets and resources and guidance in the BESA member resource area which can help with managing the risk of insolvency in construction contracts. We also offer BESA members a free introduction to contract law course via our online academy. For more information on that, log into your BESA member resource area. And if you're not a BESA member, we'd like to find out more. Visit thebesa.com/BESA membership. And finally, the countdown is on for the BESA annual conference, which takes place on the 17th of October at the Brewery in London. It's sponsored by Mitsubishi Electric. The one-day conference will set out how to inspire a better building engineering services industry for a safe, sustainable and efficient future, with a broad program of technical and topical seminars. Brand new for this year is our dedicated Skill Zone, which will introduce employers to a comprehensive suite of training services and recruitment support, along with a guidance on how to identify and address skills shortages. Tickets are available on our website. BESA members receive a discount and young engineers can attend for free. So thank you for tuning in to Behind the Built Environment. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more in-depth conversations with industry leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and share with your colleagues. Stay connected with BESA for the latest updates and insight into our industry. Until next time, I'm David Fries, and this has been Behind the Built Environment. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Built Environment podcast from BESA. If you like what you heard today, then please follow and rate us on your favourite podcast app. Come and join us over on LinkedIn, BESA Group, and carry on the conversation. And if you want to find out more about joining the BESA community, then please visit thebesa.com to start your journey with us today.